Hi, I'm your host Mystical Blue and welcome to Marvelous Videos. Ever since The Undead rose onto big and small screens, they have been successfully dominating a huge chunk of the horror genre for decades in shuffling hordes. For more than half a century, zombies stuck onto the popular culture joyride as the most enjoyed, archetypal horror antagonists who evolved and emerged in new forms, eating away towards the hive mind or the collective consciousness. The inherent sense of eerie uncanniness comes naturally towards anything dealing with a zombie, an entity who is neither alive nor dead, who was once human but has now turned into a mindless enemy to humanity, preying on human brains and bristling with the horrors of cannibalism. Zombie films of the day have evolved out of being restricted to the horror genre and have started experimenting with social commentaries, pulse-throbbing action flicks, romance, comedies, and weirdly enough, there are even erotic takes on zombies. The new age of modern horror has skillfully expanded the definition of a zombie. They are not limited to being mindless morons with an insatiable hunger for human flesh, hovering around in search of passing on their infection to destroy civilization as we know it. Here is a well-articulated list of extremely unusual and almost eerie zombie films that is bound to make your skin crawl. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you, let's begin.
Lady?
Wrecked 2007. This Spanish thriller emphasises minimalism and silence to build up the tension of the plot in order to make each revelation 10 times scarier and more impactful. This 2007 zombie thriller is a found footage horror film directed and co-written by Paco Plaza and Jaume Balagueró. The plot shows Angela Vidal, a reporter, along with her cameraman Pablo, who are set to cover the night shift in a local fire station in Barcelona and accompany the firefighters when they receive a call about an aggressive old woman trapped in her apartment and continuously screaming. Upon arriving at the building, the woman bites one of the officers' neck and they find the rest of the building residents gathered at the lobby. The entire building is shut down while they are all trapped inside. One of the officers, Alex, injures himself critically after he is thrown over the staircase, and the other officer, Ciego, is compelled to shoot the old woman dead after she kills a girl. Amidst this whole crazy fiasco, Angela and Pablo interview the trapped residents, among whom there is a little girl who claims to be sick. She says that her dog is off to the vet with her mother as he is too sick, and her mother too apparently has tonsillitis. A health inspector checks on the injured residents in a hazmat suit until they grow uncontrollably aggressive and are locked up in the apartment warehouse. It is later revealed that this is a result of a fast-spreading virus similar to rabies and was traced down to a dog in the building. The plot tension escalates when the entire building is infected, leaving only Angela, Pablo and Manu as the sole survivors who find the real source of the virus's true origin while they struggle to find an escape route out of the wretched apartment. Every character in this movie plays a key role, but the plot gives a refreshing story arc on the origin of the zombie-like infection, while providing a break free from the notion of a fictional zombie-ridden dystopian world, making the story more personalised as a documentary made by a reporter and her cameraman. This critically acclaimed movie later went on to have its own film series with Rec 2 and Rec 3 Genesis, and was later remade into an American movie by the name Quarantine. Warm Bodies 2013. It is wrong to call this movie a zombie horror thriller. It is indeed a zombie romantic thriller or a paranormal romantic thriller. Warm Bodies is a movie that is shown from the eye of an infected individual amidst a rising zombie pandemic. This light-hearted comic plot was based on Isaac Marion's novel Warm Bodies and was written and directed by Jonathan Levine. This unusual story arc focuses on the relationship shared by Julie, a human, and R, a zombie. In a post-apocalyptic zombie-dominated world, R goes out to hunt for food along with the rest of his zombie crew and encounters Julie and her group who are out to get medical supplies. As R's heart beats for the first time, he is seemingly drawn towards Julie and falls in love with her after he kills her boyfriend and eats his brain. Now, the zombies of Warm Bodies are evolved as they can experience the memories of the victims after they consume their brain and even participate in occasional communication through scruffy grunts and moans. Anyways, when Julie enters, the crew is killed by R's zombie gang. R rescues her back to an airplane, his place of residence, where they eventually fall in love by listening to LP records together. together. The story escalates when Julie finds out that R killed her boyfriend and goes back to the human enclave, leaving her zombie heartbroken. The plot ends with R gaining human trust as the zombies are seemingly evolving into a more human form, and both the civilizations begin to coexist in peace and harmony. The movie casts Nicholas Hoult as R, Teresa Palmer as Julie, Dave Franco as Perry, Robert Codry as M, and Leo Tipton as Nora. The film's reinvention of portraying human characteristics in an undead zombie set up new standards for an unusual yet fun zombie movie. The Wailing, 2016. The Wailing is a rather unsettling and deeply horrific Korean horror that blends zombies with ghostly motifs and demons alongside incorporating terrifying and eerie mythological influences from both Western and Eastern origins. Directed and written by Na Jong-hin, this movie is set in a small village that suffers a mysterious outbreak of a deadly and aggressive infection after the arrival of a strange Japanese man. This infection embeds a killing spree in those who are injured, driving them crazy enough to murder their families violently. The plot centres on a local policeman who tries to reach the end of what is causing these mysterious and horrifying killings until his own daughter is infected and he is driven to do the worst. Every scene in the movie is power-packed with eerie and pulse-pounding revelations, uncovering the involvement of satanic rituals, evil spirits, and deadly infections, leading to irreversible, violent, and psychotic outbreaks. The Wailing casting had Kwak Do-won as Jong-gu, the policeman, Kim Hwan-hee as Hyojin, his daughter, Sun Gang-guk as Oh Seong-bok, his subordinate partner, Jang So-yin as his wife, Jun Kinemura as the Japanese stranger, and Chun Woo-hee as Moo Myung, the woman in white. This critically acclaimed movie was first released in South Korea on 12 May 2016 and is now streaming on Apple TV and Hulu. The Wailing, as a spine-chilling horror movie, broke down the stereotypes set by zombie classics and reinvented the formula of how interesting a plot revolving around the undead could be. Train to Busan 2016. First aired in 2016, Train to Busan was directed and written by Yong Sang-ho, who reinvigorated the genre by setting it in a high-speed running train where all hell breaks loose when there is a zombie infestation. This movie was even aired in the 2016 Cannes Film Festival and was a record-breaking commercial success, starring Gong Yoo as Seok-woo and Kim Soo-an as Soo-an. This South Korean action horror flick is mind-numbingly intense and captivating throughout. Set within the closed premises of a high-speed running train, the movie portrays a negligent and laid-back father from Seoul who unwittingly accompanies his daughter to a trip to Busan when she decides to spend her birthday with her mother, who is now his former wife. Like every train, this one to Busan 2 is boarded by a plethora of diverse characters that we get to see, but the real issue arises when one of the passengers turns out to be sick and spreads it across the entire train, turning it into a journey of nightmare. Train to Busan is a bloodthirsty and fast-paced as it is vicious and murderous zombies, and definitely earned the acclaim for its plot that spread enough time to lend a sense of realism and tragedy to all its characters, making it all the more mortifying when they are killed by these mindless flesh eaters. The final sequence of the movie is what brings this fast-paced plot together, as it is an intricate combination of genuine emotions and insane action, all of which successfully propel the film to the front lines of all zombie flicks. Train to Busan was even aired in the 2016 Cannes Film Festival and was a record-breaking commercial success. Fido 2006. This Canadian zombie comedy film, originally written by Dennis Heaton and directed by Robert Chaumick and Andrew Curry, brings forth a refreshing concept for the undead. Fido cast includes Billy Connolly as Fido, Kay Sun Rae as Timmy, Carrie Ann Moss as Helen Robinson, and Dyla Baker as Bill Robinson. The plot setting is a mid-50s alternate universe where the immersed radiation from space has turned the dead of the graves into zombies, leading to an apocalypse where humans and zombies fight until the undead are defeated, with humanity proclaiming victory. Years past the war, the radiation continues to haunt humanity, and every dead is raised as an undead with a taste for human flesh, and the only way to prevent this is via body disposal through cremation or decapitation. But as a solution to this constant zombie issue, a governing corporation by the name of ZomCon has fenced communities together and provided collars with remote controls to force them into doing their menial tasks. When Helen Robinson buys a pet zombie for their household in spite of her zombie-phobic husband's resistance, her son Timmy finds the ultimate confidant in him and names his pet zombie Fido. Everything is well and good until Fido's collar malfunctions and he goes full zombie with a killing spree and a yard full of zombies, drawing attention of the ZomCon who take Fido away to kill him for good. The plot takes an interesting twist when Timmy later finds out that Fido's zombie existence is still alive and he sets on his adventurous quest to save his zombie pet and bring him back home. Fido is a joyride and honestly as funny as a zombie plot could become. The amusing concept of a zombie pet and the complicated but hilarious events that happen around it are absolutely worth the watch. One Cut of the Dead, 2017. This low-budget, gritty but hilarious Japanese zombie comedy film rose to instant fame and was an international commercial success, directed and written by Shinichiro Ieda. One Cut of the Dead has a very unusual cast of actors who are not famous at all. It starred Takeyuki Hamatsu as Takeyuki Higurashi, Yoshiku Takayara Donguri as Yoshiku Shasharara, Yuziku Akiyama as Aika Matsumoto or Shinatsu, Harumi Shuhama as Harimu Higurashi or Nayu, and Kazuki Nagai as Kazuki Kiami, Ko or Ken. This busted comedy reinforces and reinvigorates the notion that a horror flick could be equally terrifying and hilarious. It intricately plots a hilarious curveball at every horror interval, making it a perfect balance of comic relief for such an amped up story arc. This low budget horror is good enough to give blockbuster movie franchises a run for their money. The renovated concept of incorporating various sections injected ample humour and additional depth. The film is divided into 3 sections. The first section is the plot, which revolves around a frustrated film director who is forced to make a very low budget film due to the mounting debts. Desperate to achieve a quick success, he performs a ritual on a blood pentagram to activate real zombies, which turns into a chaotic commotion when they start filming with real flesh-hungry zombies. Director Higurashi still forces his actors and his crew to follow the script as the entire production is one continuous shot deal. Until, of course, all goes haywire when more than half of the cast is either infected and turned or killed. The second section gives a backdrop of the actors' personal lives in general before they start shooting for the film, followed by the third section, which exclusively depicts the behind-the-scenes chaos of the one-shot film amidst the zombie rise. One Cut of the Dead is critically acclaimed for its unusual concept, humour and originality. It gained its international success and exposure from the Udine Film Festival, which made the $25,000 budget film to gross for $30.5 million worldwide, setting a box office history. Maggie, 2015. Henry Hobson's directorial debut Maggie might not be the brightest of the zombie flicks, but is definitely the origin of a heartfelt and unique concept. The hopelessness of doom in this movie is quite intricately explored, where one might feel even a passive form of remorse for those who suffer the peril of being a zombie. Maggie has a stellar cast, with the movie being Arnold Schwarzenegger's dramatic departure as Wade Vogel, alongside Abigail Breslin as Maggie Vogel and Jolie Richardson as Caroline Vogel. The plot is set in a Midwestern United States where a zombie pandemic has made it extremely difficult for society to function after the outbreak of a deadly virus known as the Necroambulant virus. The protagonist, Maggie Vogel, is infected by this virus when she has her arm bitten and only has weeks before it turns her into a raging cannibal. She leaves a voicemail to her father saying that she loves him but does not want to be found. Her father, Wade, doesn't give up on her and brings her back home from the hospital for the infected. The plot progresses with the physical deterioration of Maggie's health when the infected arm turns black and she is drawn to the smell of fresh human flesh, which she has to fight. The Society's wannabe saviors do everything in their power to send her back to quarantine where she'll be killed, but Wade stands in the way, protecting her through thick and thin. Maggie intricately explores the relationship between a father and his daughter who cannot be saved. The heart-wrenching ending to the movie is bound to make you go a little soft. The Night Eats the World. The Night Eats the World, or La Nuit a dévore le monde, is a 2018 French zombie horror film written by Jeremy Guez in his novel by the same name and directed by Dominique Rocher. This movie is critically acclaimed for exploring a zombie horror plot from a more refreshing and unexplored perspective. The Night Eats the World casts Anders Danielsen-Lai as Sam, Dennis Levant as Alfred, Golshithith Farahnahi as Sarah, Sigrid Boers as Fanny, and David Kamenos as Matthew. This gritty plot revolves around a musician in the city of Paris who crashes his ex-girlfriend's party until he suddenly regains consciousness the next day to find that the city of love is infested by zombies. Luckily, Sam is smart enough to survive the attacks and save himself from getting infected. He locks himself safe in the tallest apartment of the building, out of the reach of the undead who only respond to noise. While he manages to gather supplies and survive for a prolonged period of time, Sam observes the despair of the world very closely from the window of his apartment and laments at the suffering of his existence as he is ridden with loneliness and depression. With no sign of life around him, Sam's thoughts catches onto him as he sees the hopelessness of his survival, driving him crazy enough to hallucinate situations and even consider suicide as an option. The sense of paranoia that Sam constantly experiences is what gives the story arc its eerie depth. As compared to conventional zombie plots that focus on individuals going through zombie wars, The Night Eats the World reinvigorates the story arc into an unconventional concept where a survivor's life is intricately explored as they are forced to battle their vulnerability and isolation.
Grant, run! Run now!
Grant, run now!
Pontypool 2008. This 2008 Canadian zombie horror thriller has quite the comedic tweak to it. The fictional town of Pontypool is ridden with a very strange form of outbreak, where one wrong report by a doctor has caused the entire town to slowly succumb to being undead. This concept of a zombie origin is very new and unusual when residents of the city get infected through rhetorical discourse, terms of endearment, or the English language. Grant Mazzy, a radio announcer, and Sydney, the radio station head, find a loophole to figure out how to escape this maze where speaking one's own mother tongue can lead them to a very gory death. To some parts, victims even succumb to the undead by continuously repeating certain trigger words. The zombies of Pontypool drop dead in mysterious ways when they cannot find a victim or a horde of their own. Based on the Tony Burgess novel and directed by Bruce McDonald, Pontypool is a story of Grant and Sydney figuring out a way to survive amidst this raging chaos as the world goes into mayhem. It casts Stephen McHattie as Grant Maisie, Georgina Riley as Laurel Ann Drummond, and Lisa Hull as Sydney Breyer, or Lisa. Pontypool, which is a satirical parody of an unusual outbreak that turns you into a flesh-eating zombie if you speak English, definitely stands out in the entire zombie horror universe and is worth the watch. This unusual plot was a worldwide commercial success and even had a spin-off released in 2019 by the name Dreamland. Zombies! Popularly known as Wasting Away, this 2007 zombie comedy film was directed by Matthew Cohen and starred Matthew Davis as Mike, Michael Grant Terry as Tim, Colby French as Nick Steele, Juliana Robinson as Vanessa, Betsy Bullitter as Cindy, and Richard Rhea as Colonel South. A military experiment on a soldier goes wrong, and the city goes into chaos when the serum causing the infection is not disposed of properly and contaminates the ice cream supply of a bowling arcade. Mike, Cindy, Vanessa, and Tim pass out after consuming this ice cream and reanimate as zombies. Strangely enough, they still have retained their mind and believe themselves to be humans until they start causing zombie-like errors as the world of their zombie existence is sped up as compared to normal human pace. All hell breaks loose when they accidentally kill a few people and get noticed by the military, who intend to finish them off to cover up their mistake. The zombie crew teams up with Nick, an infected soldier from the military, and decides to form their own zombie town by turning others with the help of the contaminated ice cream so that they can take on the military, who are all hell-bent on murdering them. This movie flipped the script with its unusual story arc as it broke people's traditional expectations of how far a zombie plot could go. Zombies has a unanimous dose of humour at the plot's every disposal, as every scene is upheld from the perspective of a zombie and their perception of the world in general. Their thought process and reasoning to their actions are vividly explored, which gives a personalised zombie touch to the plot. Land of the Dead, 2005. Land of the Dead is the fourth of George Romero's 6 Living Dead movies: Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and Day of the Dead, Diary of the Dead, and Survival of the Dead. With a budget of around 19 million, it grossed at 46 million, making it the highest in Romero's Dead series. Land of the Dead starred Simon Baker as Riley Denbo, Dennis Hopper as Paul Kaufman, John Leguizamo as Chloe DeMoro, Aisha Argento as Slack, Robert Joy as Charlie Hook, and Eugene Clark as Big Daddy Zombie. Romero is nothing short of a legend in zombie flicks and is well-known name for giving the world a plethora of zombie classics. The plot explored a more humanistic side of the menace created by zombies. Here, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, a zombie assault occurs on land with a feudal-like regime. This movie explores a version of intelligent zombies that overthrow the plutocratic rule of Paul Kaufman, who hunts the place. Kaufman invented an armoured vehicle by the name Dead Reckoning, which allowed people to scavenge through zombie-ridden areas without being harmed. When former commander Riley Denbo stands in the way of Kaufman's oligarch regime, there is bloodbath among innocent humans, intelligent zombies, and Paul Kaufman's tyranny. Romero once again reinvigorated the concept of a mindless, brain-feeding zombie into an intelligent version, smart enough to fight military combat. This unusual movie is bound to keep everyone on their toes, as every scene has pulse-pounding actions amalgamated with shocking revelations. 28 Days Later, 2002. Released on 1st of November 2002, this famous post-apocalyptic British horror has Cillian Murphy as its protagonist. Written by Alex Garland and directed by Danny Boyle, 28 Days Later takes its inspiration from George A. Romero's famous film series Night of the Living Dead. The plot of this zombie thriller revolves around Great Britain being infected by an aggressive and highly contagious virus known as Rage. As a result of lab experiment gone wrong, the entire epidemic causes a societal collapse, as the Rage is not your usual zombie infection. This one here is spread by mere contact or even a drop of blood. The story arc involves Jim, Selena, Mark, Frank, and Hannah, who are a group of survivors trying to make their way to safety to this dystopian land where every breathing hour risks this raging infection. The plot takes a darker turn when they are betrayed by the one broadcast by soldiers that promise survivors a safe place from the aggression-driven zombies. This movie was released with DVD extras that offered 3 alternative endings for its fans, and later went on to release a sequel in 2007, 28 weeks later, followed by a graphic novel which expanded on the timeline of the outbreak titled 28 Days Later. The Aftermath, and then a comic book series from 2009 to 2011, again by the name 28 Days Later. Alongside Cillian Murphy as Jim, the cast starred Naomi Harris as Selena, Megan Burns as Hannah, Noah Huntley as Mark, Brendan Gleeson as Frank, and Christopher Eccleston as Major Henry West. This movie reinvigorates the storytelling arc subjected to any generic zombie movie. The constant paranoia of being infected, the emotions in killing your loved ones if they are infected, and the hopelessness of being stranded in a world full of rage-driven mindless beings where every day is more difficult than the other. 28 Days Later is a critically acclaimed financial success for its unusual yet spine-chilling concept. Conclusion. With such great creative minds brainstorming new post-apocalyptic thrillers circling around the undead, a good chunk of movies are genuinely good and underrated in most cases. Although there is a lot that still goes undocumented in this list, we hope to articulate and explore more unusual grounds this genre thrives upon. Choose your favourite pick from the list in the comment box below and let us know which unusual zombie you think would be savvy enough to take over the world in an alternate dimension. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.